So this is going to be a really fun month in terms of reads. We've got quite a bit to go through. First off, I want to start by again mentioning my Stephen King read-along. I am going to be joined by Elliot from ESP Library. I have 4 books on the TBR for that one. If you haven't seen it already, go and check out my announcement video because that TBR is up already. But for a quick overview, I am reading The Institute, Fairy Tale, The Stand, and by a winner of poll pick, I will be reading The Green Mile as well. So I've talked a little bit about The Stand and Fairy Tale and The Institute, but The Green Mile, for anybody that doesn't know what it is, first off, watch the movie. It's got Tom Hanks. It's a brilliant movie. But this is essentially set at Cold Mountain Penitentiary, and it's on death row, where inmates are awaiting for old Sparky, the electric chair. And so there's this guy called John Coffey who is sentenced for the rape and murder of 2 children. And so it follows him, and I believe it follows some of the guards as well. So if I remember the movie correctly, like there's more to the story than what Coffey is actually sentenced. Like it's kind of false sentencing, like he's actually innocent. And so I'm expecting that. If you haven't watched the movie, why? Because it's an excellent movie. I really recommend you watch that. I need to rewatch that. I'm actually very glad that The Green Mile was picked. I had no idea going into this that The Green Mile was actually a Stephen King book when I saw it. So I'm very happy about that. So for Readathon, it is nature words, and so for that I may be stretching it a little bit, but I'm also going to use The Green Mile for that one because for me, when I think of nature, I think of green. So I will be choosing The Green Mile for that. It has absolutely got nothing to do with nature, The Green Mile, but the title gives me those feelings. So for Bookemon, I didn't do any of the seasonal prompts that I was supposed to do for March. And so in that case, I am going to roll over Dead Until Dark by True Blood. I did start this. I didn't get very far in it, so I'm obviously not counting that. False Hearts, and I'm going to use the Institute as my telescope because it's got, well, I mean, you can see the moon there. It's got a night sky, and you can see stars in there as well. So I'm going to use that instead of Divine Rivals. I started Divine Rivals last month and I just wasn't feeling it, and so I let it go. So I'm going to use this one instead.
So editing Jess here, we have now got our monthly Bookemon as of me editing this. So I'll share it with you here. I am going to be reading The Green Mile because it is for a beloved book. So a book that people love. Either popularity, it can be interpreted in a few different ways, but I'm interpreting it as it was chosen for me by quite a few people through the poll pick. And honestly, The Green Mile won by a landslide. So I'm going to be using the Green Mile as my monthly Bookemon.
My chicken, which is to have a yellow, orange, and black and white on the cover. This works well with Tale from Two Trails because it was released last year, and that is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwong. And I don't know a whole lot about this book. I'm trying to go into it relatively blind, but I think it is a satirical look at the publishing industry. And basically, there's this one girl who steals the manuscript from a dead person and says it's her own, and then she goes on to make a whole bunch of money. And I think it goes deeper into the publishing industry and has a really good look at it as well. So I will be reading that for my chicken and also Tale from Two Trails. Tale from Two Trails, really quickly, will be a separate video because otherwise there's just too many books, too many things to remember. So for my Legendary Sword prompt number 3, and that is to read a retelling, one retelling each month, I will be reading Gilded by Marissa Meyer. And this is apparently a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, and in this story, a miller's daughter, instead of spinning straw, I'm sure she spins straw as well, but she spins lies really well. And she was cursed by the god of lies, and so that's why she's really good at lying. And so this kind of gets her into a bit of trouble with the local king, and gets his attention. Apparently he has an undead hunter. He then kind of tells her that she now has to spin straw into gold, and that's obviously where Rumpelstiltskin comes in, because she summons this mysterious boy who helps her for a price. And then there's secrets being discovered and curses that have to be broken. As a child, Rumpelstiltskin was always one of my favourites, so this should be a really interesting read. So for my Kiwi book of the month, and this, you guys won't be able to read it at the moment because this is currently out of print, but I felt like doing a reread of this, and this is A Bright Cold Day by Victoria Ryder, and she is a friend of mine, so there's a bit of a disclaimer there. So yeah, Victoria wrote this book, and it's a dystopian YA about a girl named Rosa who has always lived in a world that's been war-torn, and has a lot of death and a lot of danger. The food is severely rationed. There's also a lot of politics in this world, and one day her brother is accused of being a sympathizer from the terrorist group who is called the Zayats. And so Rosa and her sister ultimately have to flee their city, and once they're out of that city and into another group, they start learning that the world is a lot bigger than what they imagined, and what they've been told as children, what they've always learned, is not necessarily the truth as well. So this would be a good reread. It's really quite easy to read. So that is my Kiwi book of the month. So there's a readathon that is happening in the month of April, hosted by Paul from Reader's Retreat and Mandy from The Night Owl. I will link them down below. It is called Wrestlemania-athon, and now I will preface this and say that I know nothing about wrestling, and that's fine. You don't need any knowledge. So the first prompt is Ric Flair, read a book with a pretty cover. And for this, I went with Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I was gonna read that anyway, and I just think it is absolutely gorgeous. Just coming out of a forest, it feels very whimsical, and there's lots of pretty colours as well. So there's that for pretty cover. For read a short book, I originally had the True Blood one on here, and that's 326 pages. But there's a book in Tale from Two Trails called The Old Man and the Sea, I believe is the name of the book, by Ernest Hemingway. And that is our group book, and it is 99 pages is what Kim said it was. And so that is a short book, so I think I'm going to use that for that. So that was number 2, Hornswoggle, read a short book. And so number 3, Andre the Giant, read the tallest book on your shelf. And I actually have a few that are quite tall, and they're about as tall as each other. So I've put False Hearts as my tallest book, which I'm going to be reading anyway, and that's relatively short. That's 363 pages. And so for number 4, we have Mark Henry, which is to read a book that is 500 pages. And I'm going to double this up with Tommy Wildfire Rich, which is to read a book with fire on the cover. And so it works for both of them, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there is a fire right where my finger is here. There's also one on the other side here. And this is a bit more than 500 pages. It's actually 600 and something. But it's at least the 500 mark, which is what I was going for. So for Hulk Hogan, which is to read a book with yellow on the cover, luckily we've got that chicken prompt, which is yellow face, and that also works with Tale from Two Trails. So I'll be reading that one. Prompt number 7, Stone Cold Steve Austin. That is to read a book with cold in the title. And I will be reading Bright Cold Day by Victoria Ryder for that one. And number 8, Mr. Wrestling number 2, is to either read a book that has Mr. in the title or that has black and white on the cover. And that won't be too hard. I mean, I can easily read either that one or Bright Cold Day, or even Yellowface works for that one as well. So either one of those will work. And so that is Wrestlemania-athon. Like I said, I don't know anything about wrestling, but I don't need to know anything about wrestling. Obviously, I didn't mention Tale from Two Trails very much in this video, but there will be a separate video for Tale from Two Trails. We actually do a live reaction to that one and figure out our TBR on the spot there. So that was really fun. And so with that, are there any of these readathons that you are participating in, and what are some of the books that you plan to read this month? Thank you so much for watching this April TBR. Don't forget to give me a like, give me a subscribe, all of that kind of stuff. Please comment down below. I love reading your comments and I love responding to them. And with that, have a great day, have a good night from wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.